Hello everybody, my name is Jason Langsner. I'm the Executive Vice President of Membership and Communication for the Georgetown Alumni Club of Metropolitan, Washington, D.C. I want to thank you for watching this video where we're going to be interviewing Dr. John Lawrence, professor at the McCourt School of Public Policy. After 38 years on the Hill, you've recently accepted a teaching position at the Georgetown University McCourt School of Public Policy. Could you tell us about your course? And as an alumnus, I'm curious, what brought you to Georgetown?
The course is really designed for people who want to have a very intense, high-level look at the way in which Washington functions. And we're going to organize the course to look at four major areas: the executive branch, the congressional branch, the area of lobbying and special interest representation, and then press and media. I was approached by Georgetown, I think because of my experience on the Hill, combined with my academic background, and I'm now teaching at the University of California here in Washington, D.C. And I think they came to me in part because I've got some family connections to Georgetown, including my wife who teaches in the psychology department and also has an appointment at the McCourt School.
Now as an educator, what advice would you give to your students and to others who regularly interact with members of Congress and their staff?
I think the most important thing in being successful in interacting with the Hill, whether it's members or staff, is to have a clear agenda and to be succinct and specific in what you're asking people to do. Members and staff are very busy. They have multiple demands upon their time, and they really have to focus their energies on fulfilling specific requests. So the clearer you can be about what you need from them, how they can be of assistance, is absolutely critical.
How can they make an impact in D.C. through leveraging grassroots and sharing the stories of individuals in members' home districts?
I think a lot of times people feel that they have to come to Washington to meet with members of Congress in order to be effective. In fact, on my nearly 40 years in Congress, we very often would develop legislative ideas, ideas for other policy initiatives based upon what we heard in the districts. And I think that's true of a lot of members of Congress. People can be very effective by organizing constituents and by asking for meetings with members of Congress when they're back in their districts. Many are there on a weekly or semi-monthly basis, and really have them understand how a particular issue impacts their constituency and the people who live in their districts, and not just on a national level. And then those people will bring the story back to Washington, and if you can make a compelling case and you can build an argument there. So having people organized at the grassroots, particularly in this era of social media where a lot of communication can be done quickly and inexpensively, is absolutely critical to making an impact on Capitol Hill.
What is the single most memorable story or impactful conversation that you held with a constituent or interest group? Did it leave a lasting impression or help put a face or name to a policy?
Well, I think that if I look back at the long litany of issues that I dealt with when I was on Capitol Hill, I think that easily half or more came from specific stories from constituents or from people outside Washington who brought their stories to us. In some cases, that was women in Los Angeles who were being battered and needed assistance to help them in a shelter program. In some cases, those were workers who had developed lung diseases from their exposure to asbestos and couldn't receive workers' compensation, or family farmers who were being denied water and federal benefits that they had been promised. There is just a very long litany of people who bring their individual problems to you, and you try and craft legislation or you intervene with the executive branch to try to bring a successful remedy to them.
How do you see industry and government as unique drivers and partners in creating economic growth and prosperity?
Well, I think the key there is partnership. And over the last decade or so, I think there's been a significant growth and interest in public-private partnerships. The government knows that for budgetary reasons, for political reasons, for a whole series of reasons, it cannot single-handedly do what people sometimes expect it could do, or that it could do in a former era. And I think similarly, government understands that the private sector brings expertise, it brings resources, it brings know-how, and you have to work in synergy with each other to build initiatives and policies that not only meet some ideological test, but that are also practical and work in the real world.
And what kind of students are you looking to have in your class at the McCourt School of Public Policy on making an impact in Washington, D.C.?
We're hoping that we can find people who are maybe working in embassies, maybe working in interest groups, that want to have an upgrade in terms of the sophistication with which they understand the way the city works. It's a complicated place, and most importantly, it's a changing environment. As I look through those four major categories, the executive, the legislative branch, the lobbying community, and the press, all of them are operating in very, very different ways than they were 5 years ago, and are likely to continue to operate in different ways. And what I want to do with this course is to look a little bit over the horizon and understand how these different facets of the public and private world in Washington function, and how you can be most effective in trying to influence and work within those different sectors.
And finally, do you have any additional comments that you'd like to share with alumni watching, perhaps those looking to advance their career or refine their skills?
Well, again, I think that this is a really unique opportunity that Georgetown is providing, because they're trying to marry the disparate interests that I think a lot of people believe don't get along or are locked into some sort of intractable battle, and find a way to make them work together in a constructive way. And sometimes when you're working in one of these sectors, whether you're working in a lobbying community, you're working in an embassy, you're working on a hill, you're working for a private organization, it's easy to develop tunnel vision and become not only aggressively promoting your own interests, but very defensive about outside external influences. And what I've seen over the decades that I've worked on Capitol Hill is that the people who are most successful move easily between these sectors and understand, they're sensitized to those other sectors. And so that rather than promoting your own interests by fighting other people, you're promoting your interests by trying to develop collaborations. And that's the way you're successful in this city, and that's what I think we can offer some insights in this course. I'm not only going to be doing this on my own. I'm bringing in some friends of mine who have operated at the very highest levels in the executive branch, and the lobbying community, and the press community, so that they can give some real practical insights and supplement the observations that I make as an instructor. And then we're going to have some activities for the students who are in the class to try to apply the information that we convey on an instructional level.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.